Hi, biohackers. Welcome back to another episode of the BioHackers podcast. I'm your host, David James Clark IV, here with the king of curcumin, Professor Alex Feltes. How you doing today, Alex?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, I had to clean off some turmeric stains on my counter last night from making Indian food. So
yeah,
which will make more sense down the road. So
it will make a lot more sense.
King. Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know what the king of curcumin is, come back after the opening song. Okay, welcome back. So curcumin is this miracle molecule. It's a polyphenol, and it's the active ingredient in turmeric. And turmeric is having a moment. Let's be honest. And I think for good reason. So today we've got two guests. It's such an important topic. We have our friend Reed Bender, who was in episode number 2. And we have Dr. Shivani Gupta, who's an expert in turmeric and curcumin and has done some clinical trials. So this is a really fun episode about connecting the wonders and powers of Ayurvedic medicine focused on curcumin and turmeric and Western science. What could be going on from a biochemical perspective?
Right.
So before we invite in our guests, I want to kind of get a little take from you about Ayurvedic medicine and do you take turmeric? What's your experience with Ayurvedic medicine, etc.?
So very, very little, if at all. But I guess to roll it back a little bit. So when I was doing my PhD, I did my work in molecular endocrinology, and I studied how steroids are produced, like the genes that make steroids. Looking at that, and this is the mid '90s, and it was pretty new stuff to be able to do that kind of work. And during that process, I realized how powerful steroids are. And we all know that, right? You take steroids, some steroids can build up your muscle. Like if you go to the dermatologist, they're going to go talk to you for a while. And if you don't have skin cancer, eventually they're going to give you glucocorticoids to put on your thing. And that's like how you solve all your problems. The glucocorticoids attack the immune system. Steroids, estrogen, progesterone cycles can do things like induce pregnancy. Really powerful small molecules, hormones in your blood that control lots and lots of things, lots of genes. I started thinking about like that and really started having me think about systems, biology, like thinking about not a gene, but how are lots of genes leading to traits like cancer and, being healthy and not being healthy and stuff like that. And I started thinking about, well, gosh, there's like, I like to drink tea and thinking about like Chinese medicine and how they put together different biochemical compounds, different herbs, and mix them together to give you these effects, these like polygenic effects. Ayurvedic medicine, same kind of thing. Like you're taking these powerful things to then have an effect on your system, like looking at it from a holistic perspective. And so I've always been fascinated and really trying to vector my research, and still am, towards systems biology, polygenic traits that control things that are really important, right? Like cancer, for example. And then what is the biochemistry? Because we're all biochemistry. We're really sacks, with water and biochemistry inside of it.
Biochemistry machines
allow us to exist. Yeah. And so if you understand the interface between like Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, even like steroid biology, some of the things that, we didn't, like a lot of steroids you get from plants and things like that too. There's probably a lot of overlap, but really trying to understand that from a, Western biochemistry perspective and how we do that kind of science, we can merge the two together and discover new pathways of genes and how these like things that are indescribable scientifically, describe them scientifically. The time is here to be able to do that. That's what this podcast, I think, is all about. And I'm super excited about it. And excited to have Reed back too, to have we have multiple perspectives on the same problem in our podcast.
Well, he's a biomedical engineer. And so, he's going to be looking at it from a systems biology perspective. And of course, you being a geneticist, and then Dr. Gupta is an expert in Ayurvedic medicine. So she's going to be talking about, all the different compounds and how they work together in the system. I know Reed is a licensed yoga instructor, so he understands kind of the holistic approach to things. And there's a lot to be said for, moving all the fluids through your body and thinking about things in a system perspective. And so, I don't want to focus just on curcumin, but it's the one molecule that seems to permeate all the different, medical treatments, and it might have, more polygenic impact than people believe. There's been very few clinical trials. I think a few are starting to prop up. I know Dr. Gupta is going to talk to us about, some Western medical doctors who are now kind of saying, well, the pharmaceutical stuff isn't working. Well, let's give this a try. And so I think there's something to it, and we need to be open-minded, and it's going to be exciting to find out, where the conversation goes.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's to underscore, and I'm sure I'll talk about this in the podcast too. I can't help it, but it's all biochemistry. Like if you're doing yoga and you're affecting your brain waves, that's biochemistry. If you're eating food, if I eat Indian food with turmeric in it, I'm getting all sorts of compounds, not just like sugars and amino acids and fats in the food, but I'm getting other things too, like curcumin, which is, the main ingredient in that's going, a small molecule is going in my blood. It's touching, my blood touches all my cells, and it's to get oxygen to them and pull carbon dioxide out. And it's bringing all this stuff that gets in your bloodstream to it too. And then when it sticks, it interacts with proteins in your cells. It can do stuff. That's biochemistry. So a pharmaceutical, pain reduction technique, a meditation pain reduction technique, an Ayurvedic pain reduction technique, they're all impacting biochemistry in your body. So there's no like magic to any of it. I think it's just that the tech wasn't really there to be able to see that stuff until now. And so
until now,
I'm excited about this. Yeah. I'm
excited. All right.
All
Let's welcome our guests to the show. Welcome back, biohackers. Here we are with our two guests. That's two guests for the price of one on this episode. We're really excited to have Reed Bender back from episode number 2. How you doing, Reed?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Awesome. Thank you for joining. And our special guest, Dr. Shivani Gupta. How you doing today, Shivani?
Hi, doing great.
Thank you so much for joining. We're really excited about this topic. And before we dive in, you need to help all of us Western folks pronounce this word. It's AYU, but I think it's Ayurvedic. To help us out.
It's Ayurvedic. So you do pronounce
Ayurvedic.
That, right? Yeah, some people pronounce Ayurvedic. I say Ayurvedic. So a lot of times our D in India is the. It's not duh. So you take that T. Yeah, so it's Ayurvedic.
Ayurvedic. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I'll from now on, I'm going to just call it the A word. But we're really excited about the really cool medical kind of benefits of this kind of ancient Indian approach to holistic medicine. Reed being a licensed yoga instructor and a believer. I'm a believer. I've started taking some of your supplements and I've never felt better. So we'll talk about that later. And I know Alex is convinced everything in the universe is biochemical. So we're really excited to hear, from him about how we can merge in many ways, or at least, create some synergy between some of the beliefs and the benefits of Ayurvedic medicine and Western kind of biochemistry and genetic research. So before we do that, can you give us a quick history lesson on Ayurvedic medicine? And then also, how did you get into it, and a little bit more about your journey? Because, our biohackers love to hear from our guests about how they got where they are.
Sure. So Ayurvedic medicine is a system of health, healing, and medicine from India that's over 5,000 years old. And unfortunately, here in the West, people typically don't hear about it until you're like at death's door. Everyone's gone through every other integrative and holistic modality. And then finally someone will say, oh, have you heard of this thing called Ayurveda? And then people start to kind of unwind and backtrack a lot of their health issues. So what I love is so much of the West, so much of functional medicine is reaching into Ayurvedic medicine for its tools because its tools are very effective. They're very profound at helping us live a preventive, healthier, vibrant lifestyle. So Ayurveda encompasses detoxification, circadian rhythm, living according to nature's clock. It encompasses herbology and using potent herbs and spices from India that are truly superfoods that can change the way we live. We talk about digestive fire and having a diet that's in sync with who we are and what we need. We talk about something called Doshas, or the mind-body constitution. And that's your element that's kind of driving the car, and understanding it and keeping your body in harmony really matters using different lifestyle tools. So there's so much more to Ayurveda. The textbooks are over 5,000 years old, and we're really a basis for a lot of what medicine is now, because surgery, pediatrics, a lot of these things were discussed in those texts so long ago. So I love using it for the self-care rituals, for showing people how to use circadian rhythm and all these things to balance our life. I think it's such a vast system. You kind of have to pull the golden nuggets out of it so you can operationalize them into your life and get efficacy and use out of them.
And when you say golden nuggets, it's not lost on me that turmeric is gold colored. So, so real quick, Reed, why don't you give us a quick, background on your experience with Ayurvedic? I mean, is yoga Ayurveda, or is it, are they related? How do you think of it?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll let Dr. Gupta talk more about the kind of the relation between yoga and Ayurveda, because I think she's more the expert there. But speaking from the perspective of yoga, they do come from the same lineage. And so as she was talking about kind of the D that makes the sound, kind of the yoga and Ayurveda are both rooted in the Vedic texts of India. And that's really kind of when all of these ideas around the mind-body complex and consciousness as a force that can work with biology and with biochemistry and with physics and with the natural world, really hand in hand as one and the same, and not two different ideas. There's kind of this idea of dualism where mind and body are two totally separate things, where Vedic texts, both Ayurveda and yoga, really kind of dismantle that and talk about the mind and body as a singular unit, and how those two interact with one another. And so I think that the yoga, the practice of yoga and Ayurveda kind of both are two different perspectives to take on that same idea that the mind and body are really one thing and should be treated and handled together.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Okay, Dr. Gupta. So I think you're from Texas. Is that right? Is that kind of where you grew up, and you're now in Florida? And you, in some of our discussions earlier, you're surrounded by Western doctors. Everybody kind of went into traditional medicine. You decided to try something a little bit different. I think you have a fascinating story. Tell us how you got here.
Sure. So I am from an Indian family from Houston, Texas. And growing up, we grew up in both worlds. So I grew up American, and I'd go to India every single year to visit my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, my cousins. And it was so weird being of two worlds at the same time. Because in one, you're eating Indian food every day and you're vegetarian, and your grandma reaches into the spice cabinet to fix your health problems. And then in the other side of the world, it's like a totally different approach from the drugstore in terms of when you have a problem. And so I grew up just seeing these things, wondering, well, what's right? What works better? I don't understand. And by the time I got to high school, I had a lot of health issues and was taking chronic, potent antibiotics to fix my problems. And I just remember thinking, why do I have such a weak system? Like, why is my constitution weak? Everyone else gets to stay healthy. I end up disastrously sick. And it took me till college on a trip to India, when I got so horribly sick, they were about to hospitalize me, to realize that, it was part of the problem was what I was being given. And so I sat down with a Dr. Gupta who said, you need to take these 12 medications. And for the first time, I stood up for myself and I said, I think you need to explain what all of those are, because you're recommending something that's going in my body. It's going to have an effect, and then I have to live with the consequences. And so that was really the first time I had that awareness of, okay, you have a system you're using. Your system is not working for me. I end up with gut health that's obliterated, and I can't drink orange juice when I get back to college. So obviously you did something negative to my body. on that journey of trying to heal me and help me. So I don't like the price tag to the help. How can I shift this? And I looked around, I was in India at the time, and I said, aren't we in the land of yoga and Ayurveda? Don't you guys have other tools you should be reaching for? I mean, heck, just give me a probiotic with the antibiotic. Like, let's start there. And so that really led me to saying, okay, every time we go to India, instead of hanging out, I want to go to an Ayurvedic retreat center. I want to sit at the feet of a guru and understand what this system is, how it applies to me, and how it can help me. And Ayurveda profoundly helped me. It healed my gut. It fixed all the health issues I struggled with. I built an immune system of steel that has served me very well. And it really led me down the path of realizing that as we're on our health journeys in life, we have inflammation. My family is fraught with diabetes. And every time I went to India, someone was passing away of the advanced stages of diabetes. And I thought, okay, well, I'm having issues. They're having issues. This is a horrible trajectory we're all signing up for. Just because we're hardworking and focused and successful and eating poorly, we somehow have an end of life that's tragic. So all that led me to studying Ayurveda. I did my master's in it. Then I did my PhD on turmeric. And as I took a deep dive into turmeric, I was like, this is it. This is the solution. This is that key, that golden nugget I was looking for the whole time. If I could just use this, if people would understand how to utilize the potent extract curcumin from it, maybe we could win. Maybe we could win at disease and health and devastation and family histories that don't serve us in the long run. And so I'm a pretty naive optimist, I find sometimes. I just went for it. I was like, okay, I want to solve this problem. I'm just going to create something and I'm going to test if it works, if it doesn't. And so that's what I've been doing for 7 years. I created a formula. And my point with the formula was, can we give these doctors who are using their toolkit a new tool? And if we offer them a new natural tool that helps the body, can they reach for that tool every time that doesn't have negative side effects? And then we're healed instead of hurt.
Oh, fantastic. What a great story. And we spoke a few times earlier and you sold me. And so I started taking your formula a few weeks ago and really, I mean, I've had a lot of inflammation and health issues that seem to really be subsiding. And so I'm fascinated. Nice. I'm kind of an active, participant in your story. And I know, Alex, you're fascinated by, what could be happening at the biochemical level. Specifically, I think it's curcumin. I mean, just looking at your bottle, the turmeric formula you've come up with, at least on turmeric gold, is 95% curcumin. So I mean, that tells you right away, there's something magical going on there. And I think in one of our conversations, Alex, maybe you can expand on this, that in your research, you saw that this curcumin molecule was very commonly binding in some way during gene expression in a lot of your research. And you started scratching your head. What's going on with this molecule?
Yeah, so it's not even in my research. So I teach a class where you look at the human genome, and there's 60,000 genes in the human genome, and I will go in my classroom at the university and say, "Here's a gene," and show where it is and talk about the biochemistry of what it does and everything. And then I go to another gene. I show different gene examples, and there's in the way you look at the genome, there's all this information about genes, and one of them is what are small molecules that stick to the protein product of a gene. And so it'd be a list of things like, estrogen or, Taxol drugs, and, all these different things. And then one that always seems to be on the list is curcumin. I'll pull up a gene as curcumin, pull up another gene as curcumin. And so it's it seems to be a small molecule that sticks to lots of proteins. And proteins are very sticky. If you blow your nose, right? Kind of a lot of this protein coming out of there, right?
Wow, great. So thank you for going straight to snot.
Yeah, or, you break an egg, right? That's protein. And then it's
there you go. That's better.
Clean it up. Same kind of thing. But it's always there. So I'm always fascinated by this. And, and I, I've always loved Indian food and, all that kind of stuff. And I've always wanted to dive deeper into it. And then I met you, Dr. Gupta, and it's well, maybe there's an opportunity here to hit a phenotype, to say, here's a small molecule that's affecting phenotypes that you're affecting with your formulas, right? And then maybe we could start to get at the molecular level what's going on with that. So this is like a pure like, isn't that interesting kind of moment. And that's where that came from.
Yeah, I mean, following up, just this is a very anecdotal N=1 example, but this past weekend, actually, following up, we had a conversation talking about turmeric and curcumin a few weeks ago, and this past weekend, I was pretty sick. I was not feeling very well, a lot of stomach issues, and I could not beat it. I was trying to just drink a lot of fluids. I was trying to take some ibuprofen, and nothing was making me feel better. And following up from our conversation, I was like, I wonder if I got, you know how they sell those little juice shots?
Yes. Yeah.
So I got myself a juice. I got 2 of them, actually. One of those juice shots. It was a turmeric specific like blend with black pepper. And I'd love for you to expand on that, because I know you've talked about that as well. But I tried it. I just put 2 of these. I just drank them immediately. And within 30 minutes, I mean, a lot of the inflammation I was feeling, a lot of just the stomach issues, the stomach discomfort, and just like the body aches and the body pains just immediately kind of began to alleviate. So it was really just kind of cool proof of concept following up from our last conversation of this stuff can be used, I mean, and have immediate effects. So I'd love to kind of hear more, because I looked on the bottle specifically, and it said that black pepper was added to the mix. So why is black pepper added into these mixes? I know you have it in your blend as well.
Sure. So, I was sitting in herbology class, and I remember herb after herb being recommended as like, look at asafoetida, which we call hing, look at cumin, coriander, ashwagandha, turmeric, ginger, aloe vera. I mean, honestly, there's probably 50 plants. And if I had 50 lives, which I will, I'll probably go through and study every single plant as I go through. I tell people I would get a PhD on ashwagandha tomorrow if I had the free time, because it's the next herb that excites me, that I want to really dive deep into and understand so intimately, like I have turmeric. What I love about turmeric is it feels a little bit like a miracle plant, in the sense that it does so many things that we need. So it's anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, immune supportive, antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral. So when I did my research, I was like, I'll definitely study that one first. What's funny is the whole world is now taking turmeric in 5,000 different ways. But what they're forgetting is all the different ways that we need to take it for it to absorb properly in the body. So the way I explain it is, usually if you take the turmeric plant, only 3% is the curcuminoids. And out of the 3 curcuminoids, curcumin is the most effective at reducing inflammation in the body. And so when I went out there to create a supplement, I noticed that everyone says 5,000 things on the label. And it literally took me till my PhD was over to understand what everyone was saying. And what's frustrating is most of them on the label say curcuma longa, which is just the name of the plant. So most of the time we're buying turmeric powder in a supplement, thinking that we're getting this huge potent result when you could have bought turmeric for $3. Like, I use turmeric by the teaspoonful every day in all of our Indian cooking. So for the level of inflammation most of us have, for the level of, free radicals, oxidation, and issues we want to deal with, I personally think it's very important that we take curcumin. When we take it, you have to take it with black pepper or a healthy fat to increase its absorption. And it's so important that when we take it in the potent form. So Fusionary standardized to 95%, but I work very specifically with a specific source that's medical grade. So we're always pushing into the 98% potency range in our formula. And that's why I believe we go head to head with painkillers. Like, for me, my goal was, when I get hurt, the doctor always gives me NSAIDs. It always hurts my stomach. I needed a solution. And so when I made it, I really wanted orthopedics, rheumatology, to give this to you as a tool. And I've seen, like, to me, yes, I'm a business owner and I created a formula, but I'm so fascinated by the scientific result and the anecdotal evidence. And now I get to embark on clinical research trials next year. I'm so excited because I've already seen all the data. I already know that in a patient base of 10,000, we've been able to replace a lot of things that have side effects. I won't name them, but they exist, and we're beating them big time. And so that's where I wish the world would understand we can't have skinny lattes, juice shots. I'm impressed that it worked on you so effectively. A lot of people are taking juice shots for their joint pain, their chronic joint pain, acute joint pain. I don't think that that's going to work. I think that we have to take it in a very potent form. And when I finished my PhD thesis, my final conclusions were there's more science to be done here. Like, that's in this lifetime, what I want to do is more clinical trials, of course, for joint pain, knee osteoarthritis. Those things fascinate me. its effect on telomeres. We need more science. Apples to apples between black pepper and a healthy fat. We say both are good, so I built my formula with black pepper, but there's definitely an opportunity here to dive deeper into that and give people an even better solution.
So I have a question with this. So how do you it's interesting because you've taken a complex mixture, right? That's coming from the plant, and you've purified it. I mean, you've got a couple of components, right, to it. So you've actually kind of like, done a reductionist approach to what that is. But you have a high concentration that you take, and that can increase the probability of it getting into the cells and doing its thing, as opposed to like more of a nutritional dosage.
Sure.
But you have removed. I'm going into like science here. Like,
that's the point.
You've got changed. There are different variables. You've got a lot of variables in the plant. You've got a smaller number of variables in the higher potency. But how do you know that it is curcumin? That's really what's important, and it's not a combination of something else in the plant. I mean, even from a evidence perspective, it works just as well. Like, that's fine with me as proof. But you know what I mean? Like, how do you know that you're not missing an ingredient from the plant?
Sure. So, what's interesting? I had one of my advisors. He was at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. I grew up working in his lab, and he's the one who discovered that it's curcumin with black pepper that's most effective. And he's written hundreds of papers and all of that. Yeah. And so I went back to him much later after high school, and I said, I don't understand. There's science on all sides. There's things that say all sorts of things. I'm confused. How do you go about this? And he said, we always go at it from extract. It's a very Western mindset. Like, find the thing that works, put it in a pill, solve the problem. And he said, and I said, well, how do you reconcile that with the completely opposite theory of whole plant, whole food? Like, even apple juice, we say you should eat the whole apple with the fiber, with everything, with the skin. Please don't peel the apple. Please don't juice the apple and get that hit of sugar in the body. Take it in the full form. And what he shared with me was, look, all of the turmeric plant has benefits. We've just proven that curcumin is the most effective out of all the extracts and components that we've pulled out of there so far. But there are benefits to non-curcuminoid turmeric. And so he said, I think the best way to move forward is to honor both. Put whole plant with extract for not just absorption, not just the benefit, but that honoring of the wholeness having the better impact. So in all my formulas, I do add regular turmeric in. But my goal was really to give orthopedics such a tool in their toolkit. And so to hedge my bet and guarantee the result I went for that full dose of curcumin.
Yeah. And kind of on that note, I wonder, because what you're describing sounds very reminiscent to me of the cannabis research for pain relief, because what you're describing, Alex, sounds a lot like the Entourage effect, where if you just take an extract of THC or CBD, it's not nearly as effective as kind of all the terpenes and the whole plant working together. And Dr. Gupta, that's exactly what you're describing, where, maybe it's like the curcumin is the equivalent of the THC, where that's the most potent part of it. But there is something about taking that with the whole entourage of the plant together that really increases and kind of, I don't know what it would be, but somehow it's different than taking just the extract.
True. And, a lot of people juice their turmeric. A lot of people are using it in different ways. And just even if you're going to use regular turmeric, which we do in our cooking and all Indian households, we add black pepper through garam masala. We cook it in oil as like the base. So it's important to honor that piece. And then, like you said, there's always more research to be done, more exploration. And I'm sure in this lifetime, we'll come to understand it even better in terms of why the whole plus the extract is that perfect combination.
Right. And that's where the science gets really hard, right? When you're trying to isolate variables like this compound versus that compound versus a holistic approach. It becomes it's almost impossible to do a reductionist approach when you're trying to look at these complex mixtures, right? But I guess if you start the complex mixture has an effect of this level, and then you compare it to the, mixtures of other things, but there's so many combinations in plants, right, of what's in there, any organism, and you start extracting it, right, what's in there is going to be complicated. So it's just like such the understanding what's going on from an interaction with gene product perspective is where it's all at, from my opinion. But how do you get that with a complex extract. Because like biochemistry is a lot about finding the extract.
Sure.
But you can over purify extract, have like sometimes you want that like the contaminants in there to have the effect, right? And that's a really important thing when you're looking at how you're doing biochemistry is how purified is it? And a lot of what we do now is we'll purify pure protein and it's exactly what you want it to be, but then you've lost the context of where it came from. So anyway, I'm so fascinated by this, but clearly it works, right? You don't need everything in the plant to have an effect. I'm just curious if there's something that is missing, an enhancer or something that's a catalyst, that maybe it's you have enough of that in just the turmeric complex extract to boost it.
Sure, and that's why I actually created 2 formulas. I like to run tests. So I created one formula that was very Western, 500 milligrams curcumin, turmeric 50 milligrams, 4 milligrams black pepper extract, boom. We have 6,000 scientific studies that prove that type of combination would provide X result with inflammation. So I made it. And I thought that most of my Western medicine docs would pick that tool up because it's so proven. And typically they like everything to be proven, like pharma, does all their big robust studies and have those data sets. But I also wanted to create a secondary formula that followed and honored what Ayurvedic medicine has always said, which is there's a primary herb that does the job, secondary herb supports the first, third one helps it get absorbed, fourth one helps it go where it needs to go in the body, fifth one is mitigating negative effects, sixth one further supports, and then we're done. And then we should not be relying on these things for life. So really it's that honoring of take it, utilize it, and then let it be done in the body. And so I made a second formula called inflammation relief. And it's been an interesting journey because for 7 years, I have been so pro turmeric gold and all my orthos use it and take it. And then all of a sudden I saw a shift and the practitioners made this shift to reaching to inflammation relief first and turmeric gold on top. So it's interesting when you look at the data of what, why, and how. They're sitting there dealing with the patient every day. They're open to natural solutions finally for the patients. And the theory I had, my first theory was Ayurvedic medicine can win. And it is. So it's a really cool thing to see all of a sudden this shift happening towards the honoring of that magic of plant medicine, that when you do it in the right way, with the right intention, with the right potency, with the right purity, in the right order, with the right proportions, this end result can be different. So it's fascinating.
Well, it's so cool to you're factoring in the science that 5,000 years ago, these texts were written to give it a date. Well, was it like 2,000 years of experimentation before that? Before they got to the text. So it's like there's good science behind why this works, right? If there's, straight up procedural science and how to do it. That's really cool.
Yeah. I say the same thing about yoga. Coming from the same, you're talking about the Ayurvedic text. Yoga is very often called, especially by kind of the masters of India, a science of the body, because it very much is. And, I would say that yoga is the biomechanical equivalent of the biochemical science of Ayurveda. I think it may be a good way to put it. But both of them really are, even if they're considered esoteric, they really are sciences.
Yeah. And what's cool is modern day science is proving the Ayurvedic theorems day by day. So like Nobel Peace Prize laureates won on proving circadian rhythm to be true. And so all of us in Ayurveda were like, yeah, we knew, but that's fine. You can prove it to be true. And you'll keep
it helps
proving
when you have a Nobel Prize
true.
to lean back on.
It's fine. You'll say that about turmeric. It's all good.
So,
but it's just
are you going to win a Nobel Prize for turmeric?
Maybe. That would be fun.
Yeah.
I would love to save 1 billion people from inflammation and chronic disease. That would be the ultimate life impact that I want to make.
Mm-hmm. That's a mission. That's the Praxis mission. So we appreciate you coming along, and that's the BioHackers. This is a really great segue into a shout out for the BioHackathon, because that's an opportunity for all of our listeners and biohackers in the community to participate in an Ayurvedic kind of Western biohackathon. It's happening the weekend of the 27th of January. I'm putting up the information on the screen right now. And please join us, because I think it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to do some biochemical research into the benefits of probably specifically curcumin, but just Ayurvedic in general. So Alex and Dr. Gupta, why don't you talk a little bit about what you want to do with that biohackathon and the idea of, doing that kind of, I know you've got some clinical research coming up next year. It's going to be a big year for you, Dr. Gupta. Maybe this kicks it off, from an open source democratized perspective.
Yes, Alex, go first. I'm excited.
Yeah, sure. So you've already got the problem to me is already isolated from a curcumin perspective.
Yep.
So that's a small molecule. Like I said, I know I can find out what proteins it interacts with, what pathways they're interacting with. So in the hackathon, we can build this data set and just like completely from a genetics perspective, what's happening. And then there's lots of ways that can go with that and trying to, I find out, well, once you know what genes are possibly interacting with it, you can like sort of refine those into ones where you're liable to have some impact on the activity of those genes.
Sure.
That they're not just like kind of randomly sticking to it. There's more specific interactions. Computationally kind of predict the activity of those collectively. And then I could see things where you could start to say, well, here's where the genes that curcumin interact with, and then other compounds that you're interested too, right? Maybe even in things in the plant. What are they interacting with the same genes and trying to refine not the one gene, but the packages of genes and the pathways that could all be affected, have bioactivity from this compound. This is like straight up, I could think like all the biochemistry training I've had, right? And tailspin and kinetics and all the stuff that can be done with all of this. And then at that point, I'm really a geneticist at heart, which is really I'm a systems holistic person, because genetics is a system, right? The entire system goes from a zygote to a human or whatever organism it is. But then linking that up genetically. So if you know from your clinical trials, one thing that I'd be very interested in, maybe even just touching on the hackathon, if there's people where there's different dosages are necessary, or like their impact is zero, or maybe they have a negative and adverse reaction to it, like then you can go into their DNA and sequence it and understand the bioavailability, like how it's being processed in the liver, just by their DNA sequences of their liver enzymes and stuff like that. So there's like ways to enhance from like a genomic medicine perspective your trials and understand biochemically what's going on. And what I'm really interested in this and exploring is if there are 6 pathways, and inflammation is the likely place to be looking, right? That are affected by this. Well, then, are there ways to sort of understand what's going on? And then are there ways again to then improve it?
Sure.
You can improve it from a pharmaceutical traditional perspective, or I would much rather go with the existing science of, polycompound medicinal approaches and try to already find stuff that's off the shelf. That's more of a, approved dietary thing, right? Like curry is awesome. It tastes good. I'm not worried about, like dying from eating curry, right? It's been tested over and over again. But like, trying to get all that complexity there. And again, the last thing I want to do, I completely would think would be a total waste of time, is to find the gene that's being affected by this. But more of the pathways, the packages of genes. And then you can verify that genetically. Because if you know that these genes are affected, there's variation in those genes, you could predict the people that would not have a different reaction in your trials. And so you can get very statistical and clinical at that point. And that's what I like the hackathon to be, as a first pass into that complex study.
So cool. I'm going to take my fusionary hat off for a second and put my PhD researcher hat on, because then I'm allowed to say more. But curcumin as an ingredient, we won't talk about formulas, but curcumin as an ingredient has so many profound health benefits. People call me all the time. They're like, can I take curcumin for cancer? Can I take curcumin for my heart disease? Can I take curcumin for my arthritis, my rheumatoid arthritis? And so to me, I have seen so much pain and so much destruction of families around health for the last 7 years. Maybe we can say 10 years, since I've been studying Ayurveda for 20, but I've been a researcher really for 10. So to me, I know the pathways. Like it's part of the research, IL-6, IL-9, TNF kappa B, all these things we learn about, all the interleukins. But if we could eventually get to a point where someone could understand their genetic history and then know which supplements work on them and why, we would have an entirely different world. Because right now, the way I see it is we're really shooting in the dark. when someone has a health issue, I'm like, okay, we're going to need big blood work. Let's work with a functional medicine doctor. Okay, we need a stool test. Let's get an understanding of your gut microbiome. Okay, but also I need a food intolerance test. Okay, but you're really shooting in the dark with the person in front of you because you don't know their history. And oftentimes they don't know their history. And so what a unique world we would live in if we could really drill down into that and understand what works for us and why. My hope and my dream is that curcumin helps us with half of life's issues, and we just have an easy, affordable, doable solution in front of us. But I'm really excited about the hackathon because this year has been that deep dive towards research, and I feel like we're going to kick off the year really immersing into it.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. Like one thing this is great because we'll get to learn how we do research together, right? That's what hackathons really are all about. But I think that the pathway thing is, I don't think we know what they are. I do a lot of cancer research, and I've been hearing the same stuff for 30 years about the same pathways that cause cancer. And last time I checked, cancer is still a problem. So I don't think we understand it terribly well. But so I think there's the technology is here now to understand not just like a known set of biochemical events of a simple pathway, but the complexity of interacting pathways. We can measure that stuff even down to a single cell level now that we couldn't do before. And so I think that there's the ability to see the complexity of how all the genes are interacting with basically an infinite number of combinations. Like there's more there. I had a student calculate there's not enough atoms in the universe with the number of combinations that could happen from a single cell human to a 70-year-old person to get down a tumor. All the possible gene interactions that can occur.
Sure.
But we can see those. There's only a subset that work, right? And you can see that evolutionarily. Some things do happen and some things don't. And finding those and hitting them with what we can see now, the resolution now, where you stop trying to, everybody labels pathways, this does that, but they're intersecting and they have different combinations of things. We don't understand how they work. Compound approaches to polygenic phenotypes like this are really, we couldn't do that before. We could do it now. We can test it genetically. If I'm right, these people have this right genetic variation, then they should be impacted or not. And that's very practical, right? Especially from a dosing perspective, like give them more, give them less, right? Of any drug, including curcumin.
Right. And you can develop around that. If you can figure out what is most effective, you can design formulations around the key issues that people struggle with. Which is really nice because people are struggling. They're not finding solutions right now. They're finding side effects. And it's a very frustrating world. Mm-hmm. And I find that, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but it looks like we're only going to get unhealthier, not healthier. So the more we can do to contribute to global health, the more we can contribute to global happiness. That's how I look at it. As healthier we are, the more vibrant we are, happier we are, and then we have a better planet overall.
And back to Alex's point about like, you see, cancer rates are increasing with all of the money we're funneling into it, with all of the research that's being done. You see the same thing with diabetes and how many different diseases end with itis. And just we have these diseases of inflammation. And this is something that, and I'd love for you to speak more about this. And you mentioned the doshas when you kind of in your introduction, but speaking from the perspective of yoga, again, it's kind of the idea that everything is connected. And a lot of those diseases of inflammation and diabetes and cancer, these things are arising in the body due to an imbalance of energy. And it's an emotional, energetic, again, that mind-body connection. It's an energetic problem, not just a mechanical problem. And, this kind of goes to the distinction between the Eastern and Western approaches, where I think that they both should be valued and honored. Because if I break my arm and need acute intervention, I don't necessarily want the Ayurvedic approach. I want the best orthopedic surgeon who can come and really help me fix the mechanics of my body. But for something that is chronic and persistent, we really need to change the way that Western medicine is approaching it and begin to approach it not from just a symptom treatment idea, but really beginning to understand what is underlying the phenomenology of disease progression and what can we do to kind of stop it in its tracks early on. And I think Ayurveda has a really key role to play in that.
Absolutely. You know, Ayurveda is one of the systems of medicine that really dives into the root cause. And I always refer people into traditional Chinese medicine. I like them to use acupuncture, chiropractic, homeopathic, naturopathic. All these systems have such a profound relevance. What's cool about Ayurveda is we have multiple sets of tools we reach into, one of which is the dosha. And so, you know, when I built a supplement, it was a very like across the board, this will help you kind of thing. But it was interesting over the journey of creating it and disseminating it to learn how individualized health needs to be when you want to create that deeper transformation. So when I work with a woman one-on-one who is fatigued, stressed, dealing with weight gain that's resistant and persistent and annoying, perimenopause, brain fog, these issues, I can't just say, take some turmeric, your life will be fixed. It's what's your dosha? How did your primary element in your body that was governing how you felt shift? When did it shift? What happened? How do we reverse you back to where you were before? How do I get you onto circadian rhythm so you're in rhythm with life as opposed to pushing uphill against it? And I do think that if we all lived the Ayurvedic lifestyle, we would prevent so much disease. We would feel so much better. We would be using the yogic and Ayurvedic practices as a rhythm that is part of every hour of our day. Like I literally live my life where every single hour of my day, I am either drinking a tea, taking a supplement, doing deep breaths, you know, intentionally balancing to myself and my constitution. The other piece of that is I think there's so much science, since you guys are into science, there's so much science still yet to be correlated around dosha and blood type, dosha and disease, circadian rhythm and overall health, sleep, how horrible our sleep is, and sleep detriments in people to the diseases that exist. So I think there's going to be more and more science that comes out on that. And I can't wait because it'll prove what we knew this whole time, which was if we're out of balance, out of harmony in the body or out of harmony with nature, we're going to be manifesting disease. It's just a matter of at what stress points in the timeline of our lives that we generated the disease point start, like the starting point, and then it just propagated from there.
So real quick, on behalf of all the biohackers out there, including me, who don't know what dosha is, can you describe it real quickly?
That was where I was going next.
Yeah.
The doshas and as well, you mentioned the governing elements of the body. I'd love if you could explain that as well.
Sure. So it's related. I've been trying to simplify doshas for a while, and I still haven't landed on my words, but I'm starting to use elements as a way to explain them. So dosha is a concept from Ayurveda, which is our mind-body constitution. So just like Reed was saying, we believe mind, body, and spirit are interconnected. We're not just the mind. We're not just the body. So we believe that people are one of three body types: Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. And so the Vata people are wind and air. The Pitta people are fire and water. The Kapha people are earth with some water. So based on which of those three primary body types you fit into, you're going to have certain mental, emotional, and physical traits that govern your body through this lifetime. And your dosha is decided at conception. So it's a combination of your parents. I was born of two pittas. I am a very pure pitta. I am a fire personality. I just want to go. I want to function like a rocket ship. And when something slows me down, I'm irritated. So I have a very different personality type than, say, a Kapha, who's like one thing at a time. I'm slow and I'm steady. They're very of the earth. And so what I find is people end up super vitiated or imbalanced in their doshas. They end up switched. In the US, a lot of us end up Kapha, 20 pounds heavier than we started, and having these imbalances. Or we end up very wind and air. So people are anxious, overwhelmed. They're like tornadoes spinning, never finishing their projects. And that's another tough place to be. And so the goal is, how do you balance and realign yourself into your original mind, body, constitution, or element? And when you're there, you feel like you're in your home base. You feel strong. You feel balanced and empowered to move forward with everything else you want to do. And so I tried to build dosha into a 6-week program that everyone could just understand and magically apply. And I learned the hard way that this is why there's Ayurvedic practitioners. You have to sit with someone and customize that piece. It's not as intuitive or simplistic as I want it to be.
Is there an online quiz I can take to find out which one I am?
I put a quiz on my website, so it's there and you can take it to know what you are. But then it usually requires a quick phone call with me to like discern your childhood versus your now, and then what you're going to do to balance it. But you guys could probably guide me on an algorithm or something I could build around this.
Yeah.
Maybe.
This sounds like the Airbender.
Yeah. This sounds like a cool app idea.
Yeah,
I know. I can see the reed bender wheels turning.
But there's somewhere to implement AI and like cloud computing into this to make it a publicly available app. There's something there.
Yeah. Well, but also there's genetics. When you're defining these people, is it based upon their personality or is it based upon, you said body type?
Yeah.
I mean, is there actually a morphology? Is there some like morphological characteristics that you would associate with these different types?
Yeah. So
that means you developed into that. That means you have genes that can be shared by these groups of people. And you could do genetics.
So like a Vata person is thin and wiry. So anytime you meet someone who's thin, wiry, small bones, small wrists, small joints, long, narrow face, that's more of the physical characteristics. Then what they experience. So poor sleep, poor digestion. They can kind of eat like a bird erratically. They don't have to eat a real meal ever. They don't have that digestive fire like a Pitta. Like if I don't eat 3 meals, someone's going to pay a price. Versus a Vata can just barely eat all day. And then their mind is very like a tornado. Busy body, busy bee, can't slow down. Tendency towards anxiety and overwhelm.
These are quantifiable phenotypes. I mean, you could map genes associated with these phenotypes.
Wow.
Yeah. And the way that you've been describing it, I mean, I click into the air one. Is it Vata?
Yeah, I can tell you're a Vata.
Yeah. And it's like, as you're describing it, it's not even a question. Like there was no resonance with Pitta or Vata or, describe the three. Yeah. But when you described, Vata, the air one, I was just like, everything, it clicked. So it's very interesting to see. And it's funny because, my last name is Bender. Avatar is my favorite show. I love Avatar: The Last Airbender, and have kind of adopted it. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, and so the thing is, if you know you're a Vata, you can do a couple of very key basic things as your homework that you build into your lifestyle that then keep you balanced over time and thus help you succeed. So to me, I'm about disease prevention, but I'm also about what does it take for us to be our most successful, happiest selves. And so I want my Vatas to be grounded. I want my Kaphas to be lighter. I want my Pittas not to explode. So I usually guide people on the daily rhythm they can build to stay healthiest.
So I guess I'll ask that as a pointed question because, we're talking a lot about disease progression and things like that. But when you said that Vatas tend to struggle with anxiety and kind of that rapid spinning of the head, that's when it really clicked for me. And I think that kind of, over anxiety and too much stress can certainly lead to physical manifestations of illness, but kind of to this idea of the mind-body connection of even if I'm healthy and I'm physically fine, mentally it causes a lot of fatigue and anxiety. So what are some things that as a Vata, maybe one piece of homework for myself and for any listeners that even if it's not a physical solution, maybe just mentally or for well-being and, what is a good kind of first step?
First step is living according to a schedule. So you mentioned you had a stomach issue. Typically when you have a digestive issue, not always, but if the mind is going nuts, the stomach will as well. The gut-brain axis and the connection, right? And so I like to sit and train my Vatas to live breakfast, lunch, dinner, and bedtime like it's the law. Like you have to shift your life to give yourself 3 square meals a day and pick that bedtime and stick to it 90+% of the time. And if
probably
you can
nothing
do that,
I'm worse at.
Yeah, of course.
There you go.
Opposite of what a Vata wants to do. A Vata's like, I don't have to do anything on any schedule. I can eat chips 4 times a day. And I'm like, it's so funny. And
it's kind of scary how on point this is.
Yeah. And so the homework, now, if you did that, you would see your mind would clear, your digestion would clear, your sleep issues would be better. You would be more successful at completing what you start. You would release those times of overwhelm and anxiety because gut is going to get healed. There's going to be gut oleation. You're going to be grounded, and thus you're going to be on an entirely new path. What I haven't proven yet is, okay, we put you on the path. Now, what diseases did we prevent? What future problems did we just stop in this process?
Like, for anybody listening, if that's not proof of concept, I don't know what is.
Fusionaryformulas.com. Go take the quiz.
Oh, it's on my other website, ShivaniGupta.com. So on my personal.
Oh, ShivaniGupta.com. Okay, there we go. Go take the quiz.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Reed. I love talking doshas. I also love talking circadian rhythm, sleep, our schedule, how we work with nature according to dosha, how we use herbs and plants. It's all intertwined. Yeah.
Wow. Fascinating.
So the one question I'm following up on the BioHackathon, and Reed, this kind of plays a little bit to you. I really liked the back and forth between the doctors, Dr. Alex and Dr. Shivani, about, the pathways and the clinical. And wouldn't it be cool if you guys could find a way to create synergy between the biochemistry, bioinformatics research and the clinical research? Because then you start to see some correlations, different, and then we throw some dosha into that, into the mix, because you said there'd be kind of phenotypes, et cetera. But Reed, you kind of dove into AI and, building an app. And I think that was kind of on my mind even before you said it, in the sense that you've been doing some quantum research, and we just had a biohackathon about, time and being able to potentially forecast using predictive analytics and machine learning. Is there a play? Because it strikes me that, Ayurvedic is still a systems oriented approach to things. And so, is there a way that we can use maybe quantum mechanics and predictive analytics in the kind of research biohackathon to help create even, more clarity about what could happen to somebody, or what is the best treatment on a personalized level?
Yeah, and I think that it is a outstanding question. I think that it's something that is extremely novel, and kind of what we're doing here is, in a sense, radical, because nobody is really thinking to apply the intersection between things like quantum research and chaos theory and kind of these more esoteric, misunderstood sciences with things like Ayurvedic research, with AI. I mean, kind of the intersection of all of that is very poorly understood by, I think, myself and everybody on this call as well. It's very much of a emergent field. And I think that really the underlying philosophy, and I've kind of mentioned this at the intro, but under what I'm studying and the philosophy of yoga and the philosophy of Ayurveda and chaos theory, is really that everything is connected. And this ties into Alex's comment as well about how it does no good to try and look for a needle in a haystack of a single gene that's impacting with curcumin, but it's going to be some network of interactions that kind of are all tangled together and interacting with intermittent stochasticity that you can't really model. And there has to be some way to get a picture of what's happening kind of at a snapshot, but while incorporating all of the complexity of the system. And so that's really where it is a impossible task to model the full complexity of the human body at the biomechanical level of yoga and at the biochemical level of Ayurveda. But I think by integrating some of the ideas behind quantum mechanics, where electrons are entangled and you can have spooky action at a distance, and chaos theory, where you can't pull a single element of a system out and look at it like a clock. You have to look at the whole system as it's intertwined within its constituent parts. I think that kind of the philosophy of that bend of research, even if not applying, the quantum mechanical equations or Feynman's research, you can take the underlying concepts that kind of inspire quantum mechanics and chaos theory and apply it to biochemistry and systems genetics and artificial intelligence research. And that's really where the breakthroughs are going to come, is when it's not so much the application of strict theory, but it's more so taking the underlying mentality that leads to that kind of research and applying it in these fields.
Everything you said is systems level. It's just non-reductionist. That's what all those things are. That's where you want to understand the frog, don't put it in a blender.
That's right. I mean, one of my favorite Celticisms. Don't put the frog in a blender, because you're not going to understand the whole frog.
What you're going to do is destructive sampling when you do that. And this is kind of a little bit of a joke, but you stop the system. And we certainly can't kill people and measure them. We can't put a person in a blender. When you put the frog in a blender, if it's okay for you to do that, you've only measured it at that moment. And so you can't see the time over time. And so you can't see the system propagating over time and shifting from states. And you see this in developmental biology, like we all start from one cell, and then we turn into quadrillions of cells of different tissue types. So there's transitions that are stable biochemically, and we're all, whether we're studying ourselves or not, if we're 5 million years ago or 5 million years from now, these things are still happening. We're just happen to study them with different approaches, right? So there's a reality to everything. And I think these different techniques we're all looking at the same thing. They're different, not worldviews, they're actually more scientific, I think, than say worldview is. But yes, you got to study the system. And that's where you got to kill it. You got to destroy the system to see its parts. And what if they're worthless when they're in parts? Like, I don't know how important most genes are.
Ironically, AI is going to stop us from having to do that. So everybody thinks AI is going to destroy the universe, but I think it's going to help us understand it better without having to destroy it. But that's my naive
That's really where that's kind of been my thread of research. So I kind of dove more into AI. I've dived more into artificial intelligence and kind of the research in the field, and it really is moving at light speed right now. I mean, some of the things that are happening and innovations that are coming out are unbelievable, and they feel like science fiction. And personally, I really do believe that we're kind of at an inflection point in the field of research where we can go one of two directions. We could have the Star Wars AI and be surrounded by R2-D2 and C-3PO, or we could go the Matrix AI and be completely trapped by our own creation. And, it's going to be interesting to see where the next 100 years of research in that field takes us. But, if we can build out systems that allow us to have the C-3POs and R2-D2s of artificial intelligence research to help kind of answer some of these questions, the way that we'll be able to conduct research into things like Ayurveda and yoga is going to look completely unlike what we see today.
Good.
Absolutely.
So I'm convinced, and we're just wrapping up now, but I am convinced that this episode is kind of one of those inflection points. And all you who are listening, you heard it here first. I think the confluence of all of these different approaches and understandings, et cetera, is going to create something new. That something new is going to happen in January and then beyond. So before we finish with our last question, I just want to invite everybody to come back. There will be a follow-up podcast, maybe many, with these three fabulous people and me, the talking head. But we'll be talking about what we discovered, what we learned, what happened with the BioHackathon and the early clinical trials, et cetera, sometime next year. But in the meantime, the question I always like to ask at the end, and we'll start with our special guest, Dr. Shivani Gupta. Do you have anything else to add? Closing thoughts?
It's been fascinating meeting you all, because the conversation we had initially before today was, how are we going to be, change makers in this world? And I found it so fascinating when you guys replied to my email that you're at a university, you're creating, so much new technology and innovation in areas that I never would have thought to even approach, to look deeper into what I consider plant magic, plant medicine, Ayurvedic superfoods, super herbs. And so to me, like you mentioned the word confluence, I always love when there's a confluence of East and West, modern and ancient. Utilizing an ancient tool for a modern solution. I think we have so much opportunity in this world to take all of that and create positive change. So I know that people are scared of technology and how far and fast we're going. But if we can use it for good, then why not? And as we look at what technology has given us, which is, genetically modified foods and so many issues that are potentially causing so many diseases in the body. If we can battle all of that modern technology with ours, which is how we can use plants in such a profound and healthy way, or foods, if curry can heal the world, I'm all for it. If turmeric as a supplement can heal the world, I'm all for it. I'm for whatever works for the largest number of people to not have death and devastation in their families. I'm just for, I'm just so excited to work with you guys to see what we come up with in terms of all the different ways that first turmeric, and then we'll take others, can support the body in a profound way.
Excellent. Dr. Feltus.
Wow, my brain's a buzzing with a lot of stuff here. One thing I have to get off my chest, though, is that I think I'd rather be in the Matrix than have to hang out with C-3PO all the time.
I was going to say there's a third option, which is Star Trek, and I think that might be a little more fun. I don't know.
but I'm not sure exactly what the question was, but just to go off with this, I think we're at an inflection point in human history where we can deal with complexity and complex systems. And that's what we're all talking about. And even social issues, how food production at the growing plants level to getting it out to people to, distributing it and shipping it on containers across the ocean and climate change, all this stuff, everything's so complex. And we've reached the point now where you can't have one politician, go, oh, this is how it's going to be fixed. It has to be a collective, data-driven approach to understanding these systems. And we're talking about from a biological perspective. And Dr. Gupta, we're on the same page on the purpose of everything we're doing is to help people. Yeah. And if I had a magic wand and died, I would just wave the wand and die if it helped everybody, because that's what works, right? But I think that when we start to really quantify, describe with math or AI or whatever these complex systems, and take the knowledge base built from, if it was 5,000 years ago or 5 days ago, taking that data and finding the patterns that can help transform each other, transform everything, right? That's what we're trying to do. That's where we're focused at Praxis AI, really about doing data-intensive computing so you can get a bunch of data, find patterns in it that are meaningful to our species. And this is a great example of doing that. Embracing complexity. And if you think about it, everybody's always trying to simplify everything, and to the point of the toenail of the elephant, when there's a whole savanna out there filled with all these animals, it's dealing with those systems. So I don't know what your question was, David.
No, you answered it beautifully. Thank you. And Reed, closing thoughts.
I really want to leave the mic drop to what Dr. Gupta and Dr. Feltus said, because I can't resonate more heavily than with what you guys said. And Dr. Gupta, one thing that you had said earlier in the conversation was really, and we've kind of hit on the mind-body connection, but I like when you were referring to it, you referred to it as the mind-body-spirit connection. And I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind, because, talking about kind of global and societal change, we're in a dangerous place right now, and people are so disconnected and so sick and confused and looking for answers and solutions and meaning in their life. And I think that, not that Ayurveda is the meaning of life, but there are other, when you begin to recognize that these are not disconnected systems, and your mental health is directly connected to your physical health, which is directly connected to your integration with community and the people around you, and your spirit and how you feel fulfilled in life. When people begin to recognize how interconnected all of those things are, and how much potential for healing there is compared to where we stand now, I think the world is going to change. And so this is just the beginning of that.
Absolutely.
Wow, that was a pretty good mic drop yourself. Thank you again, everybody, for visiting. So my closing thoughts, go to shivanigupta.com to find out what your dosha is. Go to fusionaryformulas.com to get some of that fabulous turmeric gold and inflammatory relief, which I have been enjoying for the last few weeks to great results. Go to praxis-ai.com to sign up for the BioHackathon, again, January 27th, the weekend. And thank you again for joining us here on the BioHackers podcast. Thanks to our guests, Dr. Shivani Gupta and Reed Bender. Until next time, cue the closing song.